Hare Krishna and welcome to all the devotees online. Thank you very much for your kind association, presence, as we continue Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2, Chapter 1, verses 20 to 39. First steps in God realization. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priyam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mishra Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Vishesa Sunyavadi Pastatya Distarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastra Piyusha Sarva Vedeka Satphala Sarva Siddhantaratnadya Sarva Lokayatri Prada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavato Prabhu Kale Dando Didatitya Shri Krishna Parivartita O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churn from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most prompt transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you enriched with jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you who grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O life breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshasha Rayate Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namastute O Srimad Bhagavatam. I offer respectful obeisance unto you. By reading one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love poured upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madeka Bandhu Mad Sangem Mad Guru Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namastute O Srimad Bhagavatam. O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. Asadu Sadhu Tadahin Atini Chochataraka Hanamuncha Kadachin Mam Premna Ritkatayospura O Srimad Bhagavatam. O give us saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifted very fallen. Please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest in my heart, my throat, accompany a pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya Yatonvayaditaratas Charte Swabhigna Swarat Tene Brahmaidaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatrati Sargo Mrisha Dhamna Swena Sada Nirastakuakam Satyam Param Dhimai. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O pervading personality of God, I offer my respectful obeisance to you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primal cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destructions of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by illusory representation of water seen in fire, land seen on water. Only because of him, the material universe is temporarily manifested by the reactions of three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from illusory representation of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Prayana Upaisha Sabya Kalavasmin Yugejana Manda Sumanda Madayo Manda Bhagyo Padrata. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men about short lives, they are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above always disturbed. Narayana Maskritya Narachevam Naratamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisance unto the personality of God and Narayan, unto Nara and Narayan Rishi, the foremost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author Savaipum soparodharmo yato bhaktira dokshaja ahitukya pratyata yayatma suprasiddhati. The supreme occupation dharma of all humanity, that by which man can attain to loving devotional service under the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated, uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatya Suvairagyam Jnanam Chayadahaitakam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of God at Shri Krishna, one immediately acquires causes, knowledge, and detachment from the world. Vedanti tattva vedas tattvam yat gnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman Paramatma Bhagavan. Shri Shushoshadranasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahatsevaya Vipra Punya Tirthan Shevanat, all twice born sages. By serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shrantvam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ryedantostoya Badrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtues, properly heard and chanted. Nasta prayashu badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatutama sloke bhakti bhavati nashtiki. By regular attendance in the classes of the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, in loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Sarvadharmam Parinishtaya Janmalabha Parapumsam Antenarayana Smriti. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupation of duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are continuing Srimad Bhagavatam based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna, and welcome again. Let us cover any feedback one may have from the last session, verses 12 to 19. If you were in that session or you read the session or recapped on the video recordings, please share anything from that session that caught your attention. Just give you a minute or two to type your message. While you're typing, we will cover one of the power quotes. Prabhupada says, a fully responsible man should always be conscious of the prime duty of the present human form of life. The activities to meet the immediate necessities of material life are not everything. One should always be alert in his duty for attainment of the best situation in the next life. Human life is meant for preparing ourselves for that prime duty. So in this part of the purport or section of the purport that we covered last session, Prabhupada is making it very clear what should be our focus, what should be our goal in this human form of life. The prime duty. And the prime duty of every living entity, for every human being, is to prepare his situation so he gets the best situation in the future. And it's interesting, Prabhupada is saying that the activities to meet the immediate necessities of material life are not everything. And we see, unfortunately, people struggling and focusing 100% of their energy and time on survival. And the challenge with that is that you may strive your whole life trying to survive and not achieve the prime duty of preparing your next life. And what's going to happen? You are going to be in a worse situation than you're currently in because of your absorption in trying to survive. Not that we should not strive to survive, because if you don't survive, then you're not going to have the time and energy, the life to prepare your future. But just focusing all your energy on that, Shreva eva kevalam. Total waste of time. So we don't want to fully absorb ourselves, but we want to understand and prepare for the future. Now, we may struggle to survive, but if I'm preparing for my future, then that means that my future is going to be brighter and with less challenges to survive. So we don't want to just live a life of survival. We want to live a life where we thrive. We are really growing in our spiritual life, not just like the same example that the materialists use, or you could say the same example that even spiritualists use about materialists in this wheel. And they're walking in this wheel, and this wheel is basically spinning, and they're practically on the one spot in this rat race. So we may say, yeah, the materialists are like that. Well, we may be exactly the same in spiritual circles. We may also be going like this in spiritual life. And we're thinking, I'm advancing. But no, we have to reevaluate. We always have to see. We have to have clear spiritual goals in terms of where we are going. So Prabhupada's making it very clear. All right, let us proceed. So today we're going to try to cover, we'll see how far we can go from verses 20 right up to the end of the chapter. This section, just to recap from the last section, Sukadev Goswami, understanding his audience and knowing that there are transcendentalists in the audience who are not pure devotees, they're not Paramhamsas, they're not Bhakti yogis, they're interested in other aspects of self-realization. And also naturally for the benefit of the world, Sukadeva Goswami started discussing the first steps of self or realization, first step in God realization, which means it's not that everyone follows the exact path to perfection. Different individuals have different impressions due to past, and therefore they are inclined to different activities. And therefore, he's sharing other processes which are definitely not relevant in this age or practical in this age. But what comes out very clearly through these discussions is that devotional service is in every process. The goal of absorption on the Supreme Lord is in every process. You cannot return back to your original nature minus Krishna. It is impossible. And we'll see this come out again and again. And how Krishna's made the full arrangement, not leaving any person out for them to achieve perfection, or at least strive for perfection. Even if one is simply interested in matter, one loves nature, If one loves nature, no problem. You can still become Krishna conscious. If one wants to practice Astanga yoga, no problem. You can still become Krishna conscious. So in this way, different processes will be shared throughout the Bhagavatam, highlighting the ultimate process of Bhakti Yoga. So in reference to the questions Amaj Parikshit asked, and in response, how is dharana accomplished? And we know dharana means focus, bringing the senses and focusing the senses. What is bona fide dharana sharaya, the object of meditation? We find in this material world, people focus on material objects. Now, someone may question, like they may say, focus on your breath, focus on some object, focus on your goals, meditate on these things. So they don't say meditate on Krishna. They say meditate on these things. So is that beneficial? Or is that a total waste of time? And in answer, Sukadeva Goswami is going to share the Virat Rupa for a neophyte yogi. So we see one level, and then Paramatma for an advanced yogi. Same process, two different levels, which implies that if somebody starts to meditate on a candle, we should not discourage him. We should not say you're in Maya, but we should help him understand that there is another level. Now, if somebody is focusing on the Virat Rupa, we should explain to them that there's a higher level on the Paramatma. If somebody is focusing on the Paramatma, we can explain to them there's a higher level. So it's progressive. If you really look at the way Krishna's designed the creation, in essence, nothing is a waste, but it's just that there are processes that can take you faster if you so desire. Or you can, take the slow, gradual, step-by-step process. And how to quickly remove the contamination of the mind by the process of dharana. And here again, we will see this in every process that will be shared. You cannot perfect your life with contamination. Perfect life and contamination don't go hand in hand. That's why there's a difference between a pure devotee and a devotee, or pure devotee and an aspiring devotee. An aspiring devotee has contamination. And therefore, any process where individuals are starting, they also have contamination. And the whole process is to see your contamination, to be aware of your contamination, not get too derailed or caught up, absorbed. Because if you get too absorbed in your contamination, in the impurities that you have, the narratives that you have, you may get depressed. But you should not ignore, you should not be oblivious. Because if you're thinking you don't have any contamination, well, then you fall in the category of sahajya. So we need to be aware, at the same time focus, aware of the narratives and focus on the positive aspect of Krishna consciousness, knowing that I am practicing the process to remove the contamination that is there. So Maj Parikshit asked about Bhakti Mishra Yoga out of curiosity and certainly not because he wanted to practice it. Really, he asked it so that we could be discussing it. And those who are beginning or on the path can understand that just starting the path of Krishna consciousness doesn't mean you're pure devotee. You could be practicing Bhakti Mishra Yoga or yoga, Bhakti mixed with karma, Bhakti mixed with Gyan, Bhakti mixed with different processes. Not bad, but not the goal. We need to purify the motive, the intention, and slowly continue to advance. So text 20. Rajastamobhyam akshiptam vimudam mana atmanam yachedarayana dhiro anti yakat yan anti yatat kritam malam. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relations of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. So Sukadeva Goswami very, very clearly is describing that the mind is agitated by the mode of passion and bewildered by the mode of ignorance. And there is no exclusion. If you have not controlled your mind, this is the situation. So if we are exposing ourselves to those aspects in the mode of passion, which Lord Krishna spends many chapters, many verses in Bhagavad Gita on the three modes of material nature. Why is Lord Krishna spending so much time in Bhagavad Gita on these modes? Why? Because they bind, they agitate, they bewilder the mind. And it's your mind which dictates your destination. So if we do not have a pure mind, we will not have a pure destination. We don't have a perfect mind that is absorbed in Krishna, we will not have a perfect destination that returns us back to the lotus feet of Krishna. So we must be convinced that if I'm associating with passion, my mind will be agitated. And if my mind is agitated, I will not be able to focus it on Krishna. Now, is that the end of the world? No. But if you are living this world and then your mind is agitated, well, you are destined to return. Or if your mind is bewildered in ignorance at the time of death, you are destined to return. Okay, so I have an agitated mind and I have a bewildered mind. What can I do? I can rectify the situation. How? In relation to Vishnu, in relation to Krishna. When I connect the mind to Krishna, man mana bhava mad bhakta, think of me. When that happens, now cheto darpana marjana, is cleansing happening. So this happens in every process, even the one that Sukadeva Goswami is currently sharing now. Prabhupada in the purport says, persons generally conducted by the modes of passion and ignorance cannot be bona fide candidates for being situated in the transcendental stage of God realization. So those individuals who are contaminated by these lower modes, you cannot be transcendently situated. Oil and water. You have to be transcendental to be transcendently situated. Only persons conducted by the mode of goodness can have knowledge of the supreme truth. So throughout the Vedas, we'll hear that mode of goodness is a very good springboard for transcendental knowledge, for getting knowledge of Krishna. Even the mode of goodness is binding, but it's definitely a far more valuable mode for spiritual elevation. Effects of the mode of passion and ignorance are manifested by too much hankering after wealth and women. And those who are too much after wealth and women can rectify their leanings only by constant remembrance of Vishnu in his material potency, his impersonal feature. I'm going to read that again because, and this is an interesting example, how we have to understand Prabhupada's statements in context. Because if we do not understand Prabhupada's statement in context, we will take this completely out of context and misunderstand what Prabhupada is saying. Prabhupada is saying that and those who are too much after wealth and women can rectify their leanings only by constant remembrance of Vishnu in his material potency, his impersonal feature. So I said, oh, so that's what I should be doing. I should be remembering Vishnu in his impersonal feature, or Vishnu in terms of his material potencies. That is in context to the topic at discussion. The topic is the first stage of realization. So it's not a practice for everyone. It's a practice for those who are on the first stage. And those who are on the first stage, which means totally materially absorbed individuals. Those who are materially absorbed, what should they do? What should they focus on? So they can actually focus on Vishnu in relation to his material potency. What does it mean? You can focus on the sun. You can focus on the beautiful scenery and beautiful mountains and the sky and nature. Focus on nature. Absorb yourself on nature, no problem. And how do I do that? Sukadeva Goswami is going to share. Generally, the impersonalists or monists are influenced by the mode of passion ignorance. Such impersonalists think of themselves as liberated soul, but they have no knowledge of the transcendental feature, personal feature of the absolute truth. Actually, they are impure in heart on account of being devoid of knowledge of the personal feature of the absolute. Here's another interesting statement, Srila Prabhupada. Actually, they are impure in heart on account of being devoid of knowledge of the personal feature of the absolute. They may be austere. They may be very clean. They may be truthful. They may have control of their senses. And they got knowledge of the absolute in terms of impersonal realization. Yet, there's impurity in the heart. And what is that impurity? Lack of knowledge of the personal feature of the absolute truth. And we see how Srila Prabhupada so expertly guided us by giving us the highest feature of the absolute Bhagavan feature, and then sharing the different other aspects so that there will be no impurities left in a devotee who's practicing the process of bhakti. So impurity doesn't just mean like dirty things like lying, cheating. Here, impurity is also related to the fact that you do not have realization or even knowledge of the personal feature of Krishna. And remember previously I mentioned the Bhagavatam, different verses, different chapters. Every chapter is there to mold your psyche in a certain way. It's not haphazard and it's not irrelevant. So here is one aspect of the relevance. Somebody may say, why is this chapter, and we're going to go through it, why is this chapter discussing the Virat Rupa? I mean, that's like not for us. Well, that may not be for you, or you may not realize it's not for you, but we may still harbor impersonal aspects or even attachment to nature devoid or disconnected from Krishna. So when we're going through these chapters, just associating with these chapters, if those anarthas are there in the heart, it will automatically purify those anarthas without you even knowing. Prabhupada's statements will go into your heart and purify you of those anarthas. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that after many hundreds of births, the impersonal philosopher surrenders unto the personality of Godhead. To acquire such a qualification of God realization in the personal feature, the neophyte impersonal is given a chance to realize the relation of the Lord in everything by the philosophy of pantheism. Prabhupada will bring this point of pantheism up also again and again. To acquire such qualification for God realization in the personal feature, the neophyte impersonalist is given a chance to realize the relation of the Lord in everything by the philosophy of pantheism. Pantheism means many gods. Seeing Krishna through many gods. And why is there? Why is that there? Because that is required for certain individuals. It's one way to purify the living entity. It may not be something for you, but it does not mean that if somebody is applying this process, that is wrong. At that point, it may be relevant and important for that person to go through that stage to purify his life. Pantheism, in its highest status, does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the absolute truth, but it extends the conception of the absolute truth into the field of the so-called material energy. Everything created by the material energy can be dovetailed with the absolute by an attitude of service, which is the essential part of living energy. The pure devotee of the Lord knows the art of converting everything into its spiritual existence by the service attitude, and only in that devotional way can the theory of pantheism be perfected. So now Prabhupada is sharing what links the aspect of many gods, the aspect of seeing God in many material facets. What is the link to the absolute truth? Why is it that that can be valuable, like seeing the sun, seeing different aspects of material energy, or even worshiping seeing different personalities that are there? When we understand that everything is connected to the absolute truth, then those who are on that level, they can advance and they can link themselves, they can progress through the attitude of service. So if this is true, even for those on the neophyte platform, on those who are on the materialistic platform, to progress to a higher level, then how much more is this the truth for those on the path of bhakti? If we do not cultivate the attitude of service, and this is not the first time this is coming, and we'll see Prabhupada, he will bring this up again and again and again, depending on the circumstance of the discussion in relation to the different purports or verses, but this will come up again and again. The attitude of service. We need to cultivate the attitude of service. The greater the attitude of service, the faster you will accelerate to the spiritual world, to the absolute truth, the kingdom of God. Without the attitude of service, you may get stuck in mud. You may be rowing the boat of devotional service and finding I'm not really getting anywhere, because there may be ingredients that you are missing. And here is one ingredient that is crucial for those who are on the lower level of transcendental life to progress, and more so for those who are in the process of devotional service. 21. Yasyam sandar yamanayam yogino bhakti lakshana ashusam padyate yoga ashrayam bhadram ikshata. O king, by the system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all-good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direct shelter. Report. Success of mystic performances is achieved only by the help of the devotional attitude. So now Prabhupada is making the point that someone who's in mystic yoga, somebody who's in Ashtanga yoga, for them to achieve success, they need the help of a devotional attitude. That means somebody who's practicing Ashtanga yoga, if they do not cultivate a devotional attitude, they cannot perfect their lives. What to talk about those who are in the process of bhakti yoga? And that's why, as somebody who's practicing Ashtanga yoga, devotional attitude is the key success factor. Similarly, for somebody in bhakti yoga, the devotional attitude is a must. Pantheism, or the system of feeling the presence of the Almighty everywhere, is a sort of training of the mind to become accustomed to the devotional conception. And it is this devotional attitude of the mystic that makes possible the successful termination of such mystic attempts. Having, like when people say God is everywhere, and in Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna makes the point that I'm everywhere. And what does it mean he's everywhere? Well, you could see it in two ways. One is Krishna says in Brahma Samhita, Brahma shares this point as well, that I'm in everywhere in the feature of Supersoul. So Supersoul is everywhere. Supersoul is in every atom and in between every atom. So Supersoul is everywhere. That's one aspect. Another aspect of Krishna being everywhere is Krishna's energy is everywhere. So when people say everything is God, yes, that's true. But why is everything an aspect of God? Is because if everything is God's energy, and you understand that the absolute truth is a person, which implies that all his energies are meant for his service, then you are seeing correctly. So even in the process of Astanga Yoga, or in the process of, let's say, the Virat Rupa as the first step for realization, there has to be a guide to guide you how to see and perfect that process to go to the next level. One is not, however, elevated to such a successful status without mixing in a tinge of devotional service. The devotional atmosphere created by pantheistic vision developed into devotional service in later days, and that is the only benefit for the impersonalists. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 12.5 that the impersonalist way of self-realization is more troublesome because it reaches the goal in an indirect way, although the impersonalists also become obsessed with the personal feature of the Lord after a long time. So as you mentioned, there are some folks that just want to take it long route. They just want to take the long route. And no problem. If you want to take the long route, you have free will to take the long route. Krishna is not going to force you. He's going to allow you to make the decision, you to choose. So those who are intelligent will want to go there quicker. If you want to go there quicker, then you can cut all the stages and just come to the point. So here we see that even the practice of mystic perfection or mystic yoga, Astanga yoga, this is there to get people in that category who are interested in mechanical practices, etc., to ultimately come to cultivating a devotional attitude. Because without that devotional attitude, you will not perfect your life. Which means you may start very mechanical and very impersonal, but if you have a proper guide who's far more advanced, and in one sense, maybe a pure devotee, but is guiding you relative to where you are and your attachments, at one point, he's going to tell you, now, if you want to move to the next step, you need to add the devotional attitude. And that allows the process to achieve perfection. 22. Rajo Vacha Yathasan Daryate Brahman Dharana Yatrasam Samata Yadrish Siva Hared Asu Purushasya Manomalam. The fortunate kings, inquiring further, said, O Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed. And as we started this section, we said that this specific verse is not implying that Maharaj Parikshit wants to practice the process. But his questioning is beneficial so that we are getting the knowledge even of these processes and how glorious the process of devotional service is. So by going through these aspects, we will appreciate the process of Krishna consciousness even more. Purport. The dirty things in the heart of a conditioned soul are the root cause of all troubles for him. So if you're in trouble, now you know the answer. It's not your friends, it's not your family, it's not the government, it's not anyone in this world. It's caused because of your own heart. And what about your heart? The dirty things in your heart. The dirty things in your heart will, or because of the dirty things in your heart, material nature arranges the circumstances that causes trouble. So it seems like there are external reasons that's giving you trouble. But the only reason why you are in trouble is because it's inside and not out. It's an interesting revelation when we really look at it. So when we start addressing the dirt inside, guess what happens to the trouble outside? Mystically, amazingly, they just vanish. It's like, what happened? All of a sudden, there's no trouble. Well, that's because the inside is clean. And you cannot have a clean heart with troubles. It just doesn't work. The only reason you will have troubles if you got a clean heart is if Krishna wants to use you as an example to teach others how to survive, what attitude to have when you're in trouble. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. If you see the pure devotees that came with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to this world, they were pure devotees. But they may have gone through so much trouble. Why? Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is using them to teach us. What do devotees do when they're in trouble? Well, one is they don't blame. The other is they don't complain. But they surrender more to the holy name. They surrender more to the Supreme Lord. As Lord Brahma prayed, that one who experiences reverses, if he accepts that this is due to my fault, and Krishna is so merciful, he's giving me a token reaction. And my Lord, I will continue worshiping you, glorifying you. And they're eligible for the kingdom of God. A conditioned soul is surrounded by the manifold miseries of material existence, but on account of his gross ignorance, he's unable to remove the troubles due to dirty things in the heart, accumulated during the long prison life in the material world. Now someone may ask, where does this dirty impurities come from? I can't remember. I've been very good this life. I'm a good person. I've been doing good. I've been living good life. I can't remember. How can we say my heart is impure? You cannot see the dirt, but you can see trouble. You can feel the trouble. You can experience trouble. So if you're experiencing the troubles, immediately go back to this purport, read the first line, and you'll know why. Oh, I'm experiencing trouble because of the dirty things in my heart. I can't see that. Where did that come from? It came from the long imprisonment in this material world. We've been here for billions and billions of lifetimes, and that dirt has been accumulating. All right. So now I know that trouble equates dirty things due to long sentence in the material world. All right. What do I do then? He's actually meant to serve the will of the Supreme Lord, but on account of dirty things in the heart, he likes to serve his concocted desires. So now I know what that dirt is doing to me. It's allowing me to fulfill the material desires and not serve Krishna. These desires, instead of giving him any peace of mind, creates new problems and thus bind him in a cycle of repeated birth and death. these desires. So due to that dirt, what does the dirt do? The dirt, those dirty things in your heart, instead of serving the will of Krishna, it allows you to serve the concocted desires that come from your mind. And when you serve your concocted desires, then you will not get peace of mind. But what you're going to get? Well, it's creating new problems. And thus, it's binding you. This is the challenge. That's why the philosophy of just fulfill your desire, it doesn't matter. When you fulfill any material desire, you will be peaceful. Not according to the Bhagavatam. If you allow concocted desires to be fulfilled, it's binding you, not liberating you. There are more problems created, not less. There's more dirt accumulated, not less. These dirty things of fruit of work and empiric philosophy can be removed only by association with the Supreme Lord. So now I know the disease, I know the symptoms, I know the cause. Now Prabhupada is giving the solution. And there is only one solution. Nothing in this material world is going to alleviate that dirt. It's going to remove that dirt. You can try every single process, concocted or not, every single ingredient, manufactured genetically or not, it will not remove the dirt in your heart. The only thing that can remove the dirt, I'll read the sentence. These dirty things of fruit of work and empiric philosophy can be removed only. There's no other option. By association with the Supreme Lord. The Lord, being omnipotent, can offer his association by his inconceivable potencies. So as we're going through this purport, please keep in mind that this chapter is going to reveal the Virat Rupa, the universal form of Krishna. So probably Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit, and the purports are laying the foundation for us to appreciate that Virat Rupa. Appreciating nature. What's the benefit of appreciating nature connected to the Absolute? It is not meant for those who are advanced. It's a stage for those who are neophytes. But why do they make advancement? They make advancement because they are associating with the Supreme Lord. The Lord, being omnipotent, can offer his association by his inconceivable potencies. It's a wonderful statement. Because Krishna is omnipotent, he can offer his association. See, association is a two-way street, two-way relationship. I want to associate with someone, they need to be willing to give that association. It's not assumed. I can be together and yet not associate. Like we talk about Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha doesn't just mean coming together. Sadhu Sangha actually implies coming together with what focus? The focus, the center is Krishna. And when the center is Krishna, Krishna becomes pleased, and then Krishna offers his association. And can Krishna offer his association in any sphere, in any area, no matter who you are, no matter what aspect you're associating with of his energies? And the answer is yes. Prabhupada would often give the example of somebody drinking liquor. And Prabhupada says, if he thinks that this liquor is so nice, it's Krishna, he makes advancement, which means that now he's linking the liquor to the potency of Krishna, and Krishna can offer his association, and that purifies the dirty things in the heart. Thus, persons who are unable to pin their faith on the personal feature of the Absolute are given a chance to associate with his Virat, or the cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord. So people would ask, well, why does Krishna have a universal form? What's the whole reason? And practically a whole few chapters will be discussing this in different parts of the Bhagavatam. Well, why? Persons who are unable to pin their faith on a personal feature of the Absolute are given a chance to associate with his Virat Rupa, or cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord. So let's say you meet someone and you tell him God is a person. Nah, cannot be. I love to meditate on mountains. And for me, mountain is God. Mountain is that Absolute. No problem. Now we just have to teach him how to leverage that meditation. He's already attached to mountains. So how can we now use his attachment to help him make advancement? Because you cannot force someone beyond their level of realization and adhikar, qualification. They will fall if you do that. Yes, by mercy, they can advance, but otherwise, they need to go through the process. So those who are unable to pin their faith on the personal feature, they're given a chance to associate with the Virat Rupa. So the key is associate. How do I help souls associate with the personal, associate with the Virat Rupa, so that they can become purified? The cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord is a feature of his unlimited potencies. Since the potent and the potency are identical, even the conception of his impersonal cosmic features helps the conditioned soul to associate with the Lord indirectly, and thus gradually rising to the stage of personal contact. And that's the crux of the matter. This is why the Virat Rupa has a purpose. In fact, this is why everyone, no matter who you are, where you are, what level of realization or how you're helping individuals, everyone has a purpose to play to take them to the next step. Good or bad. We learn from our mistakes. We learn, or we are inspired by good events. All that, the good and the bad, is meant to take us to the next step. So here we see how Krishna has made a beautiful and amazing arrangement, that those who cannot accept his personal form, Krishna doesn't say, okay, now you go to hell. You don't accept me, go to hell. No, Krishna says, okay, no problem. This is how you can advance. You can associate with me. And why you can associate with me? Yes, it's indirect. But the reason is because the potent and the potency are identical. And because the potent and the potency are identical, that means all of Krishna's energies have the ability to allow Krishna to associate with you, so that you can gradually rise to a higher and higher level of God realization, ultimately coming to the personal realization of God. Maharaj Parikshit was already directly connected with the personal feature of Lord Shri Krishna. And as such, he had no need to inquire from Sukadeva Goswami about where and how to apply the mind in the impersonal Virat Rupa of the Lord. But he inquired after a detailed description of the matter for the benefit of others. who are unable to conceive of the transcendental personal feature of the Lord as the form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. The non-devotee class of men cannot think of the personal feature of the Lord. See, we may sometimes take it for granted. I mean, how can people not accept that God is a person? That's common sense. It's obvious. I got a form, God has to have a form. It's obvious. My form is material, God's form is Sachinanand. It's obvious. Yeah, it's obvious because of your evolution on spiritual path. It may not be obvious for every living entity. And therefore, for that person, that living entity who cannot appreciate God having a spiritual form, then they have a different process. I remember having a discussion with one when we were in Midrand. So somebody called me and they said they want to chat with me. So I said, sure. So then we met him and we started chatting. So as soon as I started speaking to him, immediately I could understand he's impersonal. In fact, not even impersonal. His philosophy was, I'm God and you God. We all God. So as the discussion started, getting more intense, initially, I started giving him different arguments, counter arguments, but he was adamant. No matter how many logical arguments I gave, he would come back to the point, yeah, that maybe, but you God and I'm God. So after, I don't know, maybe 1 hour, 1.5 hours, so whatever understanding I had, limited understanding I had, I shared to try to convince him. I would give so many examples, the goal and the goal mind, different examples, explaining how the green bird going to the green tree, the soul is still individual, personal. Conclusion, I'm God, you God. So then I could understand we're not going to go anywhere in this discussion. So I said, actually, we both are saying the same thing. And we both should fully commit to what we believe. So I said, I believe that I'm a servant of God, and therefore I chant the names of God. You believe that you are God. So my recommendation is you should chant your name. Since you are God, you need to broadcast your glories that I'm Krishna. I need to chant Krishna's names, chant Ram's names. So you should also chant God's names. So in that way, I'm chanting God's names, you chanting God's names. That way, we have concluded this discussion. Now, he may not accept it or he may not embrace it. But for those people who are like that on different levels, we can appreciate that the process of bhakti yoga may be too far off to embrace. So for them, okay, no problem. You start at the low end. And because you want it gradual, you can slowly, gradually continue. Or, for some people, no philosophy doesn't make any sense. No problem. Give them prasad. Prasad will always make sense. So like that, for different souls, then different processes, different levels is required. But he inquired after detailed description of the matter for the benefit of others who are unable to conceive of the transcendental feature of the Lord as the form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. The non-devotee class of men cannot think of the personal feature of the Lord because of the poor fund of knowledge. The personal form of the Lord, like Rama or Krishna, is completely revolting to them. Internally, Just doesn't gel, doesn't make sense. See, it's because of the dirt. Just like if you take sugar and you got jaundice, it tastes bitter. Not because of the sugar, it's because of the dirt, the impurity, the disease. They have a poor estimation of the potency of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 9:11, it is explained by the Lord himself that the people with a poor fund of knowledge deride the supreme personality of the Lord, taking him to be a common man. Such men are ignorant of the inconceivable potency of the Lord. By the inconceivable potency of the Lord, he can move in human society or any other society of living beings, and yet remain the same omnipotent Lord without deviating in the slightest from his transcendental position. So now you take this point that Prabhupada is making here. Prabhupada is saying he can move in human society. Therefore, when Krishna appears in this world, he's not material, he's not human. He's still totally transcendental. He looks human, but he's not human. Now, Prabhupada says, well, if that's the case, then even in other societies, Krishna can take birth as a fish or appear in the form of a fish. He ain't a fish. Looks like a fish. He's not a fish. It's totally transcendental. Krishna appears as a ball. Looks like a ball, but he's not a ball. It's totally transcendental. So for the benefit of men who are unable to accept the Lord in his personal eternal form, Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Sukadeva Goswami how to fix the mind on him in the beginning. And the Goswami replied in detail as follows. 23. Shri Sukho Vacha Jitasano Jit Ta Swasho Jita Sango Jitendriya Stule Bhagavato Rupe Mannam Sandar Yet Dia. Sukadeva Goswami answered, one should control the sitting posture, regulate the breathing process by the yogic pranayama, and thus control the mind and senses, and with intelligence apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord, called the Virat Rupa. Purport. The materially absorbed mind of the conditioned soul does not allow him to transcend the limit of the bodily concept of bodily conception of self. And thus the yoga system for meditation, controlling the sitting posture and breathing process and fixing the mind upon the Supreme is prescribed in order to mold the character of the gross materials. Unless such materialists are able to cleanse the materially absorbed mind, it is impossible for them to concentrate upon the thoughts of transcendence. So now Prabhupada is sharing the dirt that allows the mind to become materially absorbed. A materially absorbed mind will mean that you are fully focused on the bodily concept of life. And for you to be a devotee of Krishna, you need to transcend the bodily concept of life. So therefore, there has to be cleansing, even for this process. Why? Because unless such materialists are able to cleanse the materially absorbed mind, it is impossible for them to concentrate on thoughts of transcendence. And to do so, one may fix one's mind on the gross material or external feature of the Lord. The different parts of the gigantic form of the Lord are described in the following verses. The materialistic men are very anxious to have some mystic powers as a result of such a controlling process. But the real purpose of yogic regulation is to eradicate the accumulated dirty things like lust, anger, avarice, and all such material contaminations. if the mystic yogi is diverted by the accompanying feats of mystic control, then his mission of yogic success is a failure because the ultimate aim is God realization. So now we see how the process of removing the dirt is the mystic yogic process, which is now described to purify you of the impurities so that you can focus your mind on the transcendental form of God. But while you're doing that and it's purifying you of the impurities, there's a booby trap. And that booby trap is that while you're performing this practice, you get mystic powers. Now you can become lighter than the lightest. Now you can get anything from anywhere. You can go to any place at will. Wow, this is far out. And then you get trapped and diverted. And such booby traps are in all the processes. Even in devotional service, Krishna consciousness, we may get followers, we may get fame, prestige, position. Everybody's calling you Swami. Wealth, knowledge. So these are all traps. These are traps that you get, and if you do not see them as results or rewards not meant for you, but actually meant for Krishna, or meant coming to you, which needs to be then offered back to the disciplic succession. And if you have you get caught up in the desire to enjoy, you will fall. So one has to always be alert. Not thinking that, oh, just see, now I'm practicing devotional service, Krishna consciousness, now I'm getting these things. Oh, Krishna is very merciful to me. Now let me enjoy. Nope. You can get trapped. And in this way, like the yogi who get trapped by mystic powers, he gets distracted. Why? Or rather, what is the distraction away? That distraction away? What is that distraction from? The distraction is from the ultimate aim, which is God realization. He is therefore recommended to fix his gross materialistic mind by a different conception and thus realize the potency of Lord. As soon as the potencies are understood to be instrumental manifestations of transcendence, one automatically advances to the next step, and gradually the stage of full realization becomes possible for him. As soon as the potencies are understood to be instrumental manifestations of transcendence, all of Krishna's energies are there simply as instruments to give pleasure to Krishna. The whole material creation is there simply to give pleasure to Krishna. Why? Because if the material world is not there, Bhoma Vrindavan is not there. If Bhoma Vrindavan is not there, Krishna cannot descend to Bhoma Vrindavan with his entourage in the spiritual world. And if Krishna cannot descend with his entourage in the spiritual world, then Krishna cannot take birth as a baby and perform pastimes with Mother Yashoda. Krishna cannot perform his Bal Leela. Krishna cannot entice and give pleasure to his devotees by experiencing his childhood pastimes. Because in the spiritual world, there is no childhood pastimes. The spiritual Krishna is 16-year youth. So therefore, around 16-year youth. So therefore, the material world is very instrumental to give pleasure to Krishna. In the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, there are only rumors of demons. Whereas in Bhoma Vrindavan, when Krishna comes, then there's real demons. So Krishna really loves to fight with them. So in this way, we see how the material world and its potencies and aspects and energies are instrumental manifestations of transcendence. 24. Visheshashtasya dehoyam stavishayam yatre dam vyajate vishwam bhutam bhavyam bhavachcha sat. This gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is the personal body of the absolute truth, wherein the universal resultant, past, present, and future of material time is experienced. So now we're going to hear, verse after verse, the different facets of this universal form, the Virat Rupa. And different aspects of it that can be contemplated for those in the neophyte stage to advance. Purport. Anything, either material or spiritual, is but an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 13:14. The omnipotent Lord has his transcendental eye, heads, and other bodily parts distributed everywhere. He can see, hear, touch, or manifest himself anywhere and everywhere, for he is present everywhere as the supersoul of all infinitesimal souls, although he has his particular abode in the absolute world. The relative world is also his phenomenal representation because it is nothing but an expansion of his transcendental energy. So when people talk about the universe is one, it's all energy, it's all God. So in essence, yes, it's Krishna's energy. And Krishna and his energy are non-different. So in that way, yes, it's all one field, it's all one energy. Although he is in his abode, his energy is distributed everywhere, just like the sun is localized as well as expanded everywhere. Since the rays of the sun, being non-different from the sun, accepted as expansion of the sun disk. In the Vishnu Puran 122:56, it is said that as fire expands its rays and heat from one place, similarly the Supreme Spirit, the personality of Godhead, expands himself by his manifold energy everywhere and anywhere. The phenomenal manifestation of the gigantic universe, Virat Rupa, is only a part of his body. So yes, everything is Krishna's energy. At the same time, when you understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you understand that this part of Krishna that is displayed in the material creation is but a small part of his body. Less intelligent men cannot conceive of the transcendental all spiritual form of the Lord, but they are astounded by his different energies. Just as the Aborigines are struck with wonder by the manifestation of lightning, a gigantic mountain, or a hugely expanded banyan tree. The Aborigines praise the strength of the tiger and the elephant because of their superior energy and strength. The Asuras cannot recognize the existence of God, although there are vivid descriptions of the Lord in the revealed scriptures. Although the Lord incarnates and exhibits his uncommon strength and energy, and although he is accepted as the Supreme Personality of God by learned scholars and saints like Vyasadeva, Narada, Sita, and Devala in the past, and by Arjuna and Bhagavad Gita, as also by the Acharyas like Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in modern age, the Asuras do not accept any evidential proof from the revealed scriptures, nor do they recognize the authority of the great Acharyas. They want to see with their own eyes at once. And yes, you can see with your eyes, but your eyes need to be qualified. So when people, like scientists, when they start to analyze nature, they find that the more they analyze, the deeper they analyze, the more profound and bewildered they get of material nature. It's like, wow, this is even far more than what we thought the material energy is like, because of Krishna's potencies. It's just astronomical in its potency and appreciation. Because scientists, people that analyze nature right to its minutest detail, they want, to try to figure out life and the essence of life and all these things. So the more they get into it, the more bewildered they become, the more astounded they become. Just like now, with as modern technology advances, people's viewpoints or aspects of experimenting even advances. Now they're trying to say, okay, now we can chop your head off. Now we can put another head that is basically a replica of this head. So in case something happens to your head, we can just replace this head and you'll be all good. Exactly the same person. Same memories, same thoughts, everything, no difference. And they're starting to experiment like that. And when they start to experiment like that, they just understand how amazing this body is, how it can heal, how surprising. And then obviously other thoughts or other aspects come out. Well, if you're replacing one head with another head, and you were able to dump all the information from that brain onto a memory stick and upload it into this brain, then more and more complicated questions arise. Well, how is that possible? Then who you are, what is life? And people just go and get more and more caught up in all these different cycles of experimenting and never come to the conclusion. And that's why the Bhagavatam is not based on such experiments or research. Bhagavatam is a revelation of the true, absolute truth directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, coming to us in a perfect disciplic chain. And therefore, the knowledge that we're getting exposed to, the scientists may have to experiment eternally and get some fraction, some glimpse of the truth, but never come to the truth until they follow the process of realizing the truth. Because they want to see with their own eyes. And you cannot see God with your eyes. You have to see God with your ears. And that is why hearing from the Bhagavatam, you are able to see Krishna. Therefore, they can see the gigantic form of the Lord as Virat, which will answer the challenge. And since they are accustomed to paying homage to superior material strength, like that of a tiger, elephant, and lightning, they can offer respects to the Virat Rupa. The Lord Krishna, by the request of Arjuna, exhibited his Virat Rupa for the Asuras. A pure devotee of the Lord, being unaccustomed to looking into such a mundane, gigantic form of the Lord, requires special vision for the purpose. The Lord therefore favored Arjuna with special vision for looking into his Virat Rupa, which is described in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This Virat Rupa of the Lord was especially manifested not for the benefit of Arjuna, but for that unintelligent class of men who accept anyone and everyone as an incarnation of the Lord, and so mislead the mass of general mass of people. For them, the indication is that one should ask the cheap incarnation to exhibit his Virat Rupa and thus be established as an incarnation. The Virat Rupa manifestation of the Lord is simultaneously a challenge to the atheists and a favor for the Asuras, who can think of the Lord as Virat, and thus gradually cleanse the dirty things from their heart in order to become qualified to actually see the transcendental form of the Lord in the near future. This is the favor of the all-merciful Lord to the atheists and the gross materialists. So anyone that says I'm God, I'm incarnation, no problem. Please show me your Virat Rupa. Oh, you don't have eyes to see. Oh, I don't have eyes. Well, then in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna didn't have the eyes. Krishna gave him the eyes. So you are God, you can give me eyes. Give me eyes so I can see you. That's a challenge. And if they cannot show the Virat Rupa, then they are not God. No matter how much mystic power they can display. Andakoshe sharirasmin sapta varana samyute Vairaja Purusho Yoso Bhagavan Dharanashraya. The gigantic universal form of the personality of Godhead within the body of the universal shell, which is covered by sevenfold material elements, is the subject of the Virat conception. So now we're hearing about the sevenfold material elements. The material world is a prison house. This prison house is fortified. It's fortified by sevenfold material walls. Each wall 10 times bigger than the previous. Therefore, to escape this material prison is impossible. The only way you can escape this prison house is by taking full shelter of the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada in the purport says, simultaneously the Lord has multifarious other forms, and all of them are identical with the original fountainhead form of the Lord, Shri Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, it has been proven that the original transcendental and eternal form of Lord Shri Krishna, the absolute truth, the absolute personality of Godhead, but by his inconceivable internal potency, Atmaya, he can expand himself by multifarious forms and incarnations simultaneously without being diminished in his full potency. He is complete, and although innumerable complete forms emanate from him, he is still complete without any loss. That is his spiritual and eternal potency. In the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, manifested his Virat Rupa just to convince the less intelligent class of men who cannot conceive of the Lord as appearing just like a human being, that he factually has the potency of his claim to be the supreme absolute person without any rival or superior. Materialistic men can think, although very imperfectly, of a huge universal space comprehending innumerable planets as big as the sun. They can see only the circular sky overhead without any information of this universe, as well as many other hundreds of thousands of universes are each covered by 7 material coverings of water, fire, air, sky, ego, noumenon, and material nature, just like a huge football, pumped and covered, floating on the water of the coastal ocean, wherein the Lord is lying as Mahavishnu. All the universes in seed are emanating from the breathing of the Mahavishnu, who is but part of the partial expansion of the Lord. And all the universes presided over by the Brahmas vanish when the Mahavishnu withdraws his great breath. In this way, material worlds are being created and vanished by the supreme will of the Lord. One can just imagine how ignorant is the poor, foolish materialist who, simply by the allegation of a dying man, puts forward an insignificant creature, to become the Lord's rival incarnation. The Virat Rupa was particularly exhibited by the Lord just to give lessons to such foolish men so they can accept a person as an incarnation of God, and only if the person is able to exhibit such Virat Rupa as Lord Krishna did. The materialistic person may concentrate his mind upon the Virat or gigantic form of the Lord in his own interest, and as recommended by Sukadeva Goswami, but he must be on his guard not to be misled by pretenders who claim to be Lord Krishna, but are not able to act like or exhibit the Virat Rupa, comprehending the whole of the universe. 26. Patalam etasya hi padamulam patanti parshni prapadde rasattalam mahatalam vishwasro thagupo talatalam vai purushasya jange. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottom of the feet of the universal Lord. The heels and the toes are the Rasatala planets. The ankles are the Mahatala planets, and his shanks constitute the Talatala planets. So the universal form is an imaginary form of the Lord. It constitutes every aspect of material creation. And it is, if you take material creation, all aspects and facets of material creation can be superimposed on the Virat Rupa in different places and positions. And that's how one can meditate on the Virat Rupa in relation to different aspects of creation. So what's been described in these verses now is how the material gross aspects are actually parts of this universal form. Outside the bodily existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the manifested cosmic existence has no reality. Everything and anything of the manifested world rests on him, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9:4. But that does not imply that everything and anything in the vision of a materialist is the Supreme Personality. The conception of the universal form of the Lord gives a chance to the materialist to think of the Supreme Lord. But the materialist must know for certain that his visualization of the world in a spirit of lording over it is not God realization. This is connecting back to the service attitude point that we read. So you cannot meditate on the energies and facets of this creation and exploit it with the intention of exploiting. That is not spiritual realization. That's not God realization. That's why no matter what people, or how godly people present themselves to be, how expert they speak, you can simply understand the level of God realization to the degree they're exploiting resources. The materialistic view of exploitation of the material resources is occasioned by the illusion of the external energy of the Lord. And as such, if anyone wants to realize the supreme truth by conceiving of the universal form of the Lord, he must cultivate the service attitude. Again, Prabhupada's bringing this point again. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of Virat realization will have very little effect on the seer. Transcendental Lord in any conception of his form is never part of the material creation. He keeps his identity as Supreme Spirit in all circumstances and is never affected by the three material qualities. For everything material is contaminated. The Lord always exists by his internal energy. So someone may say, okay, great. So if I meditate on the sun and the moon, which are the eyes of the Lord, of the Virat Rupa, that means I can make advancement. Yes. But if you're exploiting the resources, or you're exploiting the sun and the moon, or you're exploiting the energies of the Lord, then you cannot make advancement. So the service attitude, understanding if these are the energies of God, if this is the Lord, then I need to use everything for his pleasure. The universe is divided into 14 planetary systems, 7 planets, 70 planets, 7 planetary systems called Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha, Mahas, Janas, Tapas, and Satya. Upward planetary systems, one above the other. There are also 70 planetary systems downwards, known as Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala, gradually one below the other. In this verse, the description begins from the bottom because it is in line of devotion that the Lord's bodily description should begin from his feet. Sukadeva Goswami is a recognized devotee of the Lord, and he is exactly correct in the description. So very wonderful. We are hearing the description of the Virat Rupa, and this is the beginning of the description. Nectar devotion describes, if you want to see the Acha Vigraha form of the Lord, you start with the feet and move upwards. So here we see, starting at the feet. Sukadeva Goswami is describing the Virat Rupa even from the feet. It's a form of meditation. So if those who want to focus on material energy or the Virat Rupa, if they start this meditation going up, they basically are also following the devotional process of seeing the form from the feet, and in this way advancing. Here we see Mother Yashoda. She's also seeing Krishna's feet. But her meditation on Krishna's feet is totally different from we seeing the Acha Vigraha, the feet of the Acha Vigrahas, which is totally different from seeing the feet of the Virat Rupa. They're all connected to the absolute truth, but at different stages of perfection of devotion. 27. Dvijanuni stulam vishvam murter urudhyayam vitalam chatalam cha mahitalam tajjagna jagganam mahipate nabashtalam nabisharo grinanti. The knees of the universal form are the planetary system known as Sutala, and the two thighs are the Vitala and Atala plant systems. The hips are Mahitala, and the outer space is the depression of his navel. Urastalam Jyotir Anikam Sya Griva Mahar Vadanam Vaijanosya Taporaratim Vidur Adipumsam Satyam Tu Shisha Shirsani Sahasrash Shirsna. The chest of the original personality of the gigantic form is the luminary planetary system. His neck is the Mahar planets. His mouth is the Janus planet. His forehead is the Tapas planetary system. And the topmost planetary system, known as Satyaloka, is the head of him who has 1,000 heads. Purport. The effulgent luminary planets like the sun and the moon are situated almost in the midpoint of the universe. And as such, they are to be known as the chest of the original gigantic form of the Lord. And above the luminary planets, called also the heavenly planets of the universal decorated demigods, are the Mahar, Janus, and Tapa planetary systems. And above all, the Satya planetary systems, where the chief directors of the mode of material nature resides, namely Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. This Vishnu is known as Kshirodakasaya Vishnu, and he acts as super soul in every living being. There are innumerable universes floating on the causal ocean, and each one of them, the representation of the Virat Rupa form, of the Lord is there along with the innumerable suns, moons, heavenly demigods, Brahmas, Vishnus, Shivas, all of them situated in one part of the inconceivable potency of Lord Krishna, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 10:42. 29. Indradayo bhava ahur ash yushram karno disha shrotam amusya saptam na satya dashro paramasya nase grina grano syagandamukham agniida. His arms are the demigods headed by Indra. The 10 directional sides are his ears, and physical sound is his sense of hearing. His nostrils are the 2 Ashwini Kumaras, and material fragrance is his sense of smell. His mouth is the blazing fire. The description of gigantic form of the personality of Godhead made in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is further explained here in Srimad Bhagavatam. The description in the Bhagavad Gita 11:30 runs as follows. O Lord, O Vishnu, I see you devouring all the people from all sides with your flaming mouths, covering all the universe with your effulgence. You are manifest with terrible scorching rays. In that way, Srimad Bhagavatam is a postgraduate study for the student of Bhagavad Gita. Both of them are the signs of Krishna, the absolute truth, so they are interdependent. The conception of Virat Purusha, or the gigantic form of the Supreme Lord, is said to include all the dominating demigods as well as the dominated living beings. Even the minute part of the living being is controlled by the empowered agency of the Lord. Since the demigods are included in the gigantic form of the Lord, worship of the Lord, whether in his gigantic material conception or in his eternal transcendental form as Lord Shri Krishna, also appeases the demigods and all other parts and parcels, as much as watering the root of a tree distributes energy to all of the tree's other parts. Consequently, for a materialist who worship the universal gigantic form of the Lord leads him to the right path. One need not risk being misled by approaching many demigods for fulfillment of different desires. The real entity is the Lord himself, and all other are imaginary, so everything is included in him only. So here we see how by worshipping the Supreme Lord directly, one pleases all the demigods. By even worshipping the universal form of the Lord, one pleases the demigods. So therefore, there is no separate endeavor required to worship demigods. There are also 330 million demigods. So just worshipping 5 main predominating demigods is also not proper. Because you worshipping the 5, what about the rest? So therefore, the best way is simply, if you want to, it's like watering 5 leaves on a tree. Well, there are millions of leaves on the tree. You need to water all the leaves. So just watering 5 is useless. Well, the best way is water the roots. When you water the roots, all the leaves get watered. Whole trunk, all the leaves are nourished. Similarly, by worshipping the form of the Lord, worshipping the universal form, even though it's imaginary, but because it's connected, because it's a bona fide process, because it's Krishna's arrangement, then you please all the demigods. So it's amazing how even a materialistic, imaginary process of worshipping the Virat Rupa, even that is powerful enough to please the demigods. Whereas if you directly worship a demigod, it's incomplete and binding. Dyaur akshini chakshur abut patanga pakshmani vishnur ahani ubecha tad tad pru vijrimpa paramesti dishyam aposyatalu rasa eva jiva. The sphere of outer space constitute his eyepads, and the eyeballs is the sun as the power of seeing. His eyelids are both the day and night, and the movements of his eyebrows, the Brahma and similar supreme personalities reside. His palate is the director of water, Varuna, and the juice or essence of everything is his tongue. To common sense, the description in this verse appears to be somewhat contradictory because sometimes the sun is described as the eyeball, and here the outer space sphere is so described. But there is no room for common sense in the injunctions of scripture. We must accept the description of Shastra and concentrate more on the form of the Virat than on common sense. Common sense is always imperfect, whereas the description of Shastra is always perfect and complete. If there is any incongruity, it is due to our imperfection and not the Shastras. That is the method of approaching Vedic wisdom. So, someone who's got a logical and technical mind, they may now try to put all this together and try to perceive it and then say, but hold on, this doesn't make sense. The position, of what's described doesn't make sense. If the sun is the outer space, then, how can the eyelids be, it's like, hold on, something doesn't, you start to go technical and start to put things in position, but hold on, this should be here, but and this way you get derailed. So basically the bottom line Prabhupada is saying, don't be too intelligent. Krishna is God. He's the most intelligent. So just accept that Krishna knows best. He's designed it like this. Accept it. Scripture is perfect and take advantage of it. It's like someone coming to say, I'm not going to drive a car until I understand everything about the car, how every part works, what's the function and interconnectedness of every part. Well, then you're never going to drive a car. Just accept that you can jump into the car and drive it, even without knowing how it works. So like that, certain things we may not be able to appreciate, or certain things just don't make sense. And that's fair enough. Nobody said everything needs to make perfect sense in relation to Krishna. Krishna's got inconceivable potencies. Inconceivable means common sense doesn't have a place to understand it. So Prabhupada is making it very clear, common sense is always imperfect. Even though you need common sense in this material world, but common sense cannot be fully applied to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You will get stuck. Now, there may be situations that just doesn't make sense. No problem. If it doesn't make sense, put it in the back burner in your mind, your consciousness. Just leave it there. Let it lie. And carry on practicing the process. As you carry on practicing the process, over time, as you get purified, the dirt in your heart becomes purified, revelation begins. What's on the back burner begins to be accepted and understood. 31. Chandamsya anantasya shiro grinanti damstra yamasnya kala dvijani yasho jano madakari chamaya duranta sargo yat apanga moksha. They say that the Vedic hymns are the cerebral passage of the Lord. His jaws of teeth are Yama, the god of death, and who punishes the sinners. The art of affection is his set of teeth, and the most alluring, illusory material energy is his smile. The great ocean of material creation is but the casting of his glance over us. According to Vedic assertion, this material creation is the result of the Lord's casting a glance over material energy. which is described herein as almost alerting illusory energy. The conditioned souls alert by such materialism should know that the temporary material creation is simply an imitation of reality, and that those who are captivated by such alluring glances of the Lord are put under the direction of the control of sinners called Yamaraj. The Lord smiles affectionately, displaying his teeth. The intelligent person who can grasp these truths about the Lord becomes a soul fully surrendered unto him. 32. Vrido taro sto dara eva lobha dharmastano dharmapatosya sprishtam kastasya medram vrishano cha mitro Ukshe samudra girayosti sangha. Modesty is the upper portion of his lips. Anchoring is his chin. Religion is the breast of the Lord. And irreligion is his back. Brahmaji, who generates all living beings in the material world, is his genitals. And the Mitra Varunas are his two testicles. The ocean is his waist, and the hills and mountains are the stacks of his bones. Supreme Lord is not impersonal, as misconceived by less intelligent thinkers. Rather, he is the supreme person as confirmed in all authentic Vedic literatures. But his personality is different from what we can conceive. It is stated here that Brahmaji acts as his genitals and that Mitra Varunas are his two testicles. This means that as a person, he is complete with all bodily organs, but they are of different types with different potencies. When the Lord is described as impersonal, therefore, it should be understood that his personality is not exactly the type of personality found within our imperfect speculation. One can, however, worship the Lord even by seeing the hills and mountains or oceans and the sky as different parts and parcels of the gigantic body of the Lord, the Virat Rupa, of Virat Purusha. The Virat Rupa, as exhibited by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, is a challenge to the unbelievers. 33. Nadyosya nadyota tanu ruhani mahi ruha vishvat tanor nripandre ananta virya swashishtam martarishwa gatirvaha karma guna pravaha. O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body, the trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and the activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. The personality of Godhead is not a dead stone, nor is he inactive, as is poorly taught by some schools. He moves with the progress of time, and therefore he knows all about past and the future, along with his present activities. There is nothing unknown to him. Conditioned souls are driven by the reactions of the modes of material nature, which are activities of the Lord, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:12. The mode of nature act under his direction only. And as such, no natural functions are blind or automatic. The power behind activities is the supervision of the Lord. And thus, the Lord is never inactive, as is wrongly conceived. The Vedas say that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do personally, as always the case with superiors, but everything is done by his direction. As it is stated, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. In the Brahma Samhita 5:48, it is said that all the universes and the heads of them, the Brahmas, exist only for the duration of his breathing period. The same is confirmed here. The air on which the universe and the planets within the universe exist is nothing but a bit of the breath of the unchallengeable Virat Purusha. So even by studying the rivers, trees, airs, and passing ages, one can conceive of the personality of God without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 12:5, it is stated that those who are much inclined to the formless conception of the supreme truth are more troubled than those who are intelligently who can intelligently conceive of the personal form. So here you can see, trying to put all these different aspects of material creation on the universal form and its function. For the devotees, like, it's just so simple just to accept Krishna as the personal form and meditate on him and be done. But that can only be done because of the mercy of Prabhupada and purification. Otherwise, there are souls that really go through this process of connecting material energy to the Supreme Virat Rupa form, and they're able to meditate, and this way gradually, slowly advance. 34. Ishasya keshan vidur ambuvahan vashastu sandyam kuru varyam bhumna vyaktam ahur hridayam manascha sachan Brahmana Sarva Vikara Kosha. O best among Kurus, the clouds which carry water are the hairs on his head. The termination of day or night are his dress. And the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes. So if we just take that last point, his mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes. So when people start to contemplate, if they're contemplating on the change in this world, that change in the world is due to the mind, which is connected to the moon. So in this way, when they start to meditate on different aspects of creation, different material planets, material features of this creation, and then relate it to this Virat Rupa, as the mystic is now meditating on, or you could say the neophyte is meditating on the Virat Rupa like this, then slowly he is making advancement. Vignana Shaktim Mahim Ama Nanti Sarvatmanonta Karanam Kiritram Ashvashvatar Utstra Gajana Kani Sarve Mrga Pasha Vashroni Deshe. The principle of Metta Mahatattva is the consciousness of the omnipotent, omnipresent Lord, as asserted by the experts, and Rudradev is his ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephant are his nails, and the wild animals and quadrupeds are situated on the belt zone of the Lord. Vyasam sitad vyakaranam vichitram mahur manisha manjo nivasha gandharva vidyadara charana Sara Swara Smitir Ashurangnika Vira. Varieties of birds are indication of his masterful artistic sense. Manu, the father of mankind, is the emblem of his standard intelligence, and humanity is his residence. The celestial species of human beings, like the Gandharvas, Vyadaras, Charanas, and angels, all represent his musical rhythm, and the demonic soldiers are representation of his wonderful prowess. The atheistic sense of the Lord is manifested in the aesthetic sense of the Lord is manifested in his artistic, colorful creation of varieties of birds like peacock, parrots, and cuckoo. The celestial species of human beings like the Gandharvas and Vidyadharas can sing wonderfully and can entice even the minds of heaven demigods. A musical rhythm represents the musical sense of the Lord. How then can he be impersonal? His musical taste, artistic sense, and standard intelligence, which is never fallible, are different signs of his supreme personality. So now we're hearing how, because Krishna has these different abilities, talents, and experiences, it now is linking or leading to the fact that he's actually a person. And that's how this process of worshipping the Virat Rupa helps the neophyte practitioner to associate with the Lord and to then begin to accept that he's a person. The Manu Samhita is the standard law book of humanity, and every human being is advised to follow this great book of social knowledge. Human society is the residential quarters of the Lord. This means that the human being is meant for God realization and association with God. This life is a chance for the conditioned soul to regain his eternal God consciousness and thus fulfill the mission of life. Maharaj Prahlad is the right type of representative of the Lord in the family of Asuras. None of the living beings is away from the Lord's gigantic body. Each and every one has a particular duty in relation to the Supreme Body. So everyone is located somewhere along the other on this universal form. And it's interesting, your Prabhupada says, Manu Samhita is a standard law book for humanity, and every human being is advised to follow this great book of social knowledge. So if you want to know how to live in this world in a harmonious, peaceful way, then Manu Samhita is that law book, all the laws describing what you do, what you don't do, so that you can live in this world without implicating yourself and then perfect your life. We see Prabhupada giving us Krishna consciousness also is aligned to these principles, which are also described in Manu Samhita, but just transcends them. Because by being Krishna conscious, you're fulfilling all these laws and more. Disruption is the matter of discharging the specific duty assigned to each and every living being in the case of disharmony between one living being and another. And when the relation is reestablished in relation with the Supreme Lord, there is complete unity between all living beings, even up to the limit of the wild animals and human society. So disharmony, the disharmony that we experience between each other in this world, people fighting wars, conflicts between countries, conflict between races, conflict between different religious groups, all this disharmony is because of disharmony with the Supreme Lord. If each individual is in a harmonious relation with the Supreme Lord, automatically there will be harmony horizontally. So vertical harmony first, then horizontal harmony. You cannot achieve horizontal harmony without vertical harmony. Harmony must be in relation to the Supreme Lord. When that is there, then even the wild animals will be perfectly aligned in harmony. Like Prabhupada says, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed this living unity in the jungle of Madhya Pradesh, where even the tigers, elephants, and many other ferocious animals perfectly cooperated in glorifying the Supreme Lord. That is the way to peace and amity and amity all over the world. So this is the peace formula. This is how we can achieve harmony. No other way. Every other way will be either short-lived or not work. If we want permanent peace and harmony, this is the only option. Brahmananam Shatram Jo Mahatma Vidu Viduru Agni Agri Sri Ta Krishna Varna Nana Vida Vijya Gano Papano Dravyat Makha Karma Vitana Yoga. The Virat Purusha's face is the Brahmanas. His arms are the Kshatriyas. His thighs are the Vaishyas. The Sudras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipful demigods are also overtaken by him, and it is a duty of everyone to perform sacrifice with feasible goods to appease the Lord. Monotheism is practically suggested here. Offering sacrifice to many demigods under the different names is mentioned in all Vedic literatures, but the suggestion made in this verse is that all those varieties of demigods are included in the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are only parts and parcels of the original whole. Similar division of the orders of human society, namely Brahmanas, the intelligent class, the Kshatriyas, the administrators, the Vaishyas, the mercantile class community, and the Sudras, the labor class, are all included in the body of the Supreme. As such, sacrifice by every one of them in terms of pleasing the Supreme by feasible goods is recommended. Generally, the sacrifice is offered with clarified butter and grains. But with the progress of time, human society has produced varieties of goods by transforming materials supplied by God's material nature. Human society, therefore, must learn to offer sacrifices not only with clarified butter, but also with other manufactured goods in the propagation of the Lord's glory. And that will bring about perfection in human society. So how wonderful. Somebody starting on neophyte platform, worshipping the Virat Rupa, start understanding all these different aspects, eventually leading to say, all the resources that you are manufacturing, that you are creating is meant for the Virat Rupa. It's meant for the glorification of the form of the Lord. It's meant for the glorification of the Lord. So the perfection of all these aspects is Krishna consciousness. The intelligent class of men or Brahmanas may give direction for such sacrifices in consultation with the previous acharyas. The administrators may give all facility to perform such sacrifices. The Vaishya class or mercantile community who produce such goods may offer them for sacrifice, and the Sudra class may offer them manual labor for the successful termination of such sacrifice. Thus, by the cooperation of all classes of human beings, the sacrifice recommended in this age, namely the sacrifice of congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord, may be executed for the world welfare of all the people of the world. Ki Jai. So Prabhupada is now bringing it back to ground, back to home. Doesn't matter what your position is, whether you're Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, you all can play a part. Everyone can play a part, because some are using labor to produce the goods. Some are using wealth to produce goods, offering wealth. Some are giving direction. Right? So each one has a different function in the outcome of the goods. Therefore, when the goods are offered in glorification of the Lord's holy name, then everyone involved gets the benefit. So in this way, there will be harmony throughout the planet. 38. Ihan ashav ishwara vigrasya yasanishvesha kantito mayate sandhyaryatesmin vapushi stavishte manaswa buddhyana yatosti kinchid. I have thus explained to you the gross material gigantic conception of the personality of Godhead. One who seriously desires liberation concentrates his mind on this form of the Lord, because there is nothing more than this in the material world. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:10, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has verily explained that the material nature is only an order-carrying agent of his. She is one of the different potencies of the Lord, and she acts under his direction only. As the Supreme Transcendental Lord, he simply casts a glance over material principle, and thus the agitation of matter begins, and the result actions are manifested one after another by 6 kinds of gradual differentiations. All material creation is moving in that way, and thus it appears and disappears in due course. Less intelligent persons with poor fund of knowledge cannot accommodate the thought of his inconceivable potency, accommodate the thought of this inconceivable potency of Lord Krishna, Shri Krishna, by which he appears just like a human being. Bhagavad Gita 9:11. He appears in the material world as one of us, is also by his causeless mercy upon the fallen souls. He is transcendental to all material conceptions, but by his unbounded mercy upon his pure devotees, he comes down and manifests himself as the personality of God. Materialistic philosophers and scientists are too much engrossed with atomic energy and with gigantic situation of the universal form, as they offer respects more seriously to the external phenomenal feature of the material manifestation than to the non-numinal principle of spiritual existence. The transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the jurisdiction of such materialistic activities, and it is very difficult to conceive that the Lord can be simultaneously localized and all-pervasive, because materialistic philosophers and scientists think of everything in terms of their own experience. Because they are unable to accept the personal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Lord is kind enough to demonstrate the Virat feature of his transcendental form, and here in Srila Sukadeva Goswami has vividly described this form of the Lord. He concludes that there is nothing beyond this gigantic feature of the Lord. None of the materialistic thoughtful men can go beyond this conception of the gigantic form. The minds of the materialistic men are flickering and constantly changing from one aspect to another. Therefore, one is advised to think of the Lord by thinking of any part of his gigantic body, and by one's intelligence only can one think of him, and by one's intelligence only can one think of him in any manifestation of the material world: the forest, the hills, the ocean, man, element, demigod, the bird, the beast, or anything else. Each and every item of the material manifestation entails a part of the body of the gigantic form, and thus the flickering mind can be fixed in the Lord only and nothing else. So whatever part of creation you appreciate, you can now link that to the Virat Rupa, meditate on that, and in this way, you are now progressing. This process of concentrating on the different bodily parts of the Lord will gradually diminish the demonic challenge of godlessness and bring about a gradual development of devotional service to the Lord. Everything being a part and parcel of the complete whole, the neophyte student will gradually realize hymns of the Ishopanishad, which states that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, and thus he will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. This sense of God-mindedness will diminish one's pride in challenging the existence of God. Thus, one can learn to show respect to everything, for all things are parts and parcels of the Supreme Body. So here are some aspects of the underlining change that will come as one follows the process. As a neophyte gradually does this meditation, he will realize the hymns of the Ishopanishad, which states that the Supreme Lord is everywhere. If the Supreme Lord is everywhere, I need to respect everything, not exploit. So like this, slowly they will evolve in their devotional aptitude, not to commit offenses. Prabhupada says their God-mindedness. That means they are now slowly appreciating and realizing Krishna in this way. And their pride will slowly diminish to challenge God's existence. So they're appreciating God, therefore they're now accepting God, and slowly they're now progressing. And then obviously respecting every aspect, all energies of God, not exploiting, using it as an offering, sacrifice of and service. 39, last verse. Sa sarva divriti anubhuta sarva atmayata swapna janekshi taikam tam satyam ananda nidim bhajeta nanyatra sajed yatta atmapata pata. One should concentrate his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone distributes himself in so many manifestations, just as ordinary persons create thousands of manifestations in dreams. One must concentrate the mind on him and only all him, the only all blissful absolute truth. Otherwise, one can be misled and will cause his own degradation. In this verse, the process of devotional service is indicated by the great Goswami Srila Sukadev. He tries to impress upon us that instead of diverting our attention to several branches of self-realization, we should concentrate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the supreme object of realization, worship, and devotion. Self-realization is, as it were, offering a fight for eternal life against material struggle for existence. And therefore, by the illusory grace of the external energy, the yogi or the devotee is faced with many allurements which can entangle a great fighter again in the bondage of material existence. A yogi can attain miraculous success in material achievements such as anima and lagima, by which one can become more minute than the minutest or lighter than the lightest, or in ordinary sense, one may achieve material benedictions in the shape of wealth and women. But one is warned against such allurements because entanglement again is in such illusory pleasures means degradation of the self and further imprisonment in material world. By his warning, one should follow one's vigilant intelligence only. The Supreme Lord is one, and his expansions are various. He is therefore the supersoul of everything. When a man sees anything, he must know that he is seeing is secondary, and the Lord seeing is primary. Prabhupada is now giving a different perspective of the perceiver. When you see things, people think I'm seeing, and that's okay. But a higher perspective is now when you see things, you should see that you are the secondary seer, and the primary seer behind you is Krishna. So Krishna is seeing you and you are seeing creation. Therefore, when you see creation, you should also realize that Krishna is seeing what you are seeing, whether it's with an exploitative nature or whether it's with an aptitude of service. One cannot see anything without the Lord having first seen it. That is the instruction of the Vedas and Upanishads. So whatever we see or do, the super soul of all acts of seeing or doing is the Lord. This theory of simultaneous oneness and difference between the individual soul and the super soul is propounded by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the philosophy of Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. The Virat Rupa, or the gigantic feature of the Supreme Lord, includes everything materially manifested, and therefore the Virat, or the gigantic feature of the Lord, is the super soul of all living and non-living entities. But the Virat Rupa is also the manifestation of Narayana or Vishnu. And going further on and on, one will eventually see that Lord Krishna is the ultimate super soul of everything that we do. The conclusion is that one should unhesitatingly become a worshipper of Lord Krishna, or for that matter, his plenary expansions, Narayan, and none else. So let's take the shortcut. In the Vedic hymns, it is clearly said that first of all, Narayan cast a glance over matter, and thus there was creation. Before creation, there was neither Brahma nor Shiva, what to speak of others. Sripad Sankaracharya has definitely accepted this, that Narayan is beyond the material creation, and that all others are within the material creation. The whole material creation, therefore, is one with and different from Narayan simultaneously. And this supports the Achintya Veda Veda philosophy of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Being an emanation from the glancing potence of Narayan, the whole material creation is therefore non-different from him. But because it is the effect of his external Bahiranga Maya and is aloof from the internal potency, Atma Maya, the whole material creation is different from him at the same time. The example given in this verse very nicely is that of a dreaming man. The dreaming man creates many things in his dream, and thus he himself becomes the entangled seer of the dream, and is also affected by the consequences. This material creation is also exactly a dream-like creation of the Lord. But he, being the transcendental supersoul, is neither entangled nor affected by the reactions of such a dreamlike creation. It's an interesting example. A person creates the dream, he's in the dream, and yet he gets affected by the dream. So he created a dream from gross matter. The dream is not substantial, yet he is in the dream and gets affected by the dream. So in this way also, we in this material world, creating our dreamlike existence, which doesn't have true substances or doesn't have real substance. When we awake from this dream, we come back to our original spiritual awakened state. And then we realize, wow, this material world was simply a dream. He is always in his transcendental position, but essentially he is everything and nothing apart from him. As a part of him, one should therefore concentrate on him only without deviation. Otherwise, it is sure to be overcome by the potencies of material creation, one after another. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.7 as follows. Sarva bhutani kauntaya prakritim yanti mami kan. Kalpakashya punastani kalpado vishrajamya aham. O son of Kunti, at the end of millennium, all material manifestation enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. The human life, however, is an opportunity to get out of this repetition of creation and annihilation. It is a means whereby one may escape the Lord's external potency and enter into his internal potency. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta, the purport of the second canto, first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The First Step in God Realization. So the first step of God realization is that, yes, there's a process where people who are materially motivated, who cannot see the personal or accept the personal form of the Lord, they can then focus on material nature, link it to the Virat Rupa, gradually progress. For those who are more intelligent, the bottom line is focus 100% on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this way, situate oneself in the internal potency so that we save ourselves from so much trouble, from so much repetition of birth and death. It's easier, it's safer, and more secure. Surest way to perfection. Otherwise, there's complexity, challenges in taking the long cut and long process, but it is there, so that way everyone can embrace and perfect their life, surrendering to the Supreme Lord. Vantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitai. Oh, Pramanande Hari Hari. Are there any questions or comments? Please type in the chat, or you can unmute if anyone has. Any reflections on the topic and subject as well? We may definitely have been here somewhere in the bygone ages. We were doing this. Mother Les says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thanks for the Krishna Katha. My query relates to this statement. The real entity is the Lord himself, and all others are imaginary, for everything is included in him. Scripture reveals that Mahavishnu is in the meditative sleep when creating the infinite material universes. So is material creation a dream of the Lord, or is this statement simply saying that the Virat form within the universe itself is imaginary? What is the correct context to understand? Yes. So correct the Virat Rupa is imaginary. So Krishna's allowing an imaginary form for people who are materially engrossed to focus on this imaginary form. But because that is a form of his, even though imaginary, he's giving them his association and helping them progress. First point. Second point is Mahavishnu is in a meditative sleep, yoga nidra, and Krishna's sleeping is not like our sleeping. When the Lord is in a meditative sleep, his meditative sleep is the manifestation of creation. And that feature of Mahavishnu creating the creation, or you could say even just triggering the creation. Because Mahavishnu, he's in a meditative sleep, he's in a yoga nidra, his dreaming is totally transcendental and basically pastimes and exchanging with his devotees. But his glance in that meditative sleep is what impregnates the material energy and triggers the material energy, and creation starts. So Mahavishnu's dream state, yoga nidra, is also a transcendental plane of eternal exchange with his devotees. I hope that shed a little light on that. Okay, so it's not that his dream state, his slumber state, or his dreaming is creating creation. No. While he's in that dream state, as soon as he glances, he impregnates his potency into the creation, and that starts to expand. At the same time, in his slumber, as he's breathing out and in, creation is coming out, or creation is manifested, unmanifested, manifested, unmanifested. So that's basically how creation is happening on a macro level. Okay. Hare Krishna Bhushamananda says, wonderful description reminding us of the Virat Rupa and how anyone can remember the Lord in this way. Thanks for sharing the pastime at Midran with the person and how you concluded the discussion. Difficult when we're dealing with people and trying to connect them with the shortcut bhakti process given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada. But somehow we try and also learn along the way that someone is on their own journey, and we have to understand what dose of Krishna comes to give them. Yes. And also we do not properly, and also if we're not properly able to preach to someone due to our lack of ability, then we just give them some prasad, book, etc., and pray to Krishna and Srila Prabhupada to help them on their way. Yes. Srimad Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada are reminding us to keep these things in view in our dealings. Correct. Because, and you'll see, say somebody gets, like I remember when I went to the library, before coming to Krishna consciousness, I was into meditation. So I went to the library and I noticed that there were the Bhagavatam cantos, not in sequence, but broken up, different cantos, which were there. So, I just picked up one. So somebody may just pick up this canto and start reading. And if they're on this level, this will wow, this will resonate like anything. They'll think, wow, this is, God sent, this is like heaven sent, this is amazing. And they'll be so ecstatic. They read this chapter that they will not be able to hold their emotions. But because they are associating with the Bhagavatam, it's Krishna. Everything else is happening behind the scene, which they don't know. And then all of a sudden, it's like, I don't know, I want to go see the Hare Krishnas. Where did that come from? It's all a gradual stage. So yes, you're right. We may not be expert in really answering every question, in pleasing everyone, because we don't know where everyone is. And we may not even have time to understand where everyone is. And even if we did have time to understand everyone, still we may not be perfect. At least I can speak for myself. So the key is connect them to a book and try to get them to chant. Just those two things. If they're chanting, they're connecting to a book. Prabhupada and Krishna will do the rest. And we can be there as backup if they have a question, clarification. But otherwise, yeah, Krishna and Prabhupada, they do the preaching. We just do the delivering. We have the opportunity to become delivery men, and they do the rest. We get the credit and the commission for being delivery men and women. Mother Lash, what does it mean when it's said that the universe is in a seed form? Does the universe grow bigger? Yes. So what happens is when Mahavishnu breathes out, from his pores, perspiration, bubbles of perspiration come out. These bubbles of perspiration that are coming out are empty shells, universal shells. They're empty. And they begin to expand bigger and bigger and bigger. They're actually like golden shells. They expand bigger and bigger, but they're empty. And they become huge, universal empty shells. Now, as the huge empty shells are there, Mahavishnu expands himself as the second Vishnu, Garbhodakasai Vishnu, and enters into that universe. No windows, empty shell. Because there's no windows, he then perspires even more. And his perspiration from Garbhodakasai Vishnu becomes the Garbha ocean, fills half the universe with water. He lies there on the Shesha bed, and now from his navel, lotus stem of Brahma is born. Brahma is born, and then Brahma starts to create he's the secondary creator. While that's happening, the material energy has already been triggered. And then creation starts. When creation starts, everything happens. Then Garbhodakasai Vishnu expands again as Kshirodakasai Vishnu, as the super soul, and goes into every facet of creation. So that's how, when it's said that the universe is a seed form, it then expands, and then in there, creation starts. The mind is the moon. So, is there some truth then to the phrase that the moon causes changes, influence the personality of someone? Usually, people joke about the full moon having strange influence on the type of person. That there is 100% truth to that. Yeah, because of this, and also because, so if I can find Varuna, just go back to, okay, while when I'm talking, just check, if somebody can just check the reference. There was reference of Varuna presiding in one of the areas of the universal form. Just see if we can find that. In the meantime, so our body is 80% water. And the moon also influences water, tides. So because the moon also influences water or the tides, on full moon, if you drink too much water, the full moon will give you a high tide. too much water going to high tide, going to your head, causing lunatics. People become crazy. So there's a chemistry or a chemical effect that's happening on full moon day when you drink too much water. His palate is the director of water, Varuna, related to the tongue. So water causes effect on the mind due to the moon. And we know that the mind, in terms of year, mental state, right? So therefore the effect of the moon when raises water causes mental illnesses. So you become a lunatic. So therefore one has to be attentive on full moon time, full moon day. Hare Krishna, excellent advice. Deliver Srila Prabhupada's books and encourage people to chant Hare Krishna. Books are the basis. Chant and be happy. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna Ramachandra. Yes. If we see all of us somehow or other got Prabhupada's books, and that helped us further. So therefore, Prabhupada's books most definitely has, is a powerful medium to help people. At the same time, the book will give one knowledge to direct, but it is the chanting that will resolve, make arrangements, purify, deliver, reveal, inspire, do everything else. The knowledge will convince the person to chant, and the chanting will then do everything that needs to be revealed. Thank you very much for everyone's feedback. We will stop here, and next week we will start with chapter 2. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Itai Gopram Nande Hari Hari Bol.